Hi, this is Matt once again. We're about to another video, and this is a paid request for Ryan. Thank you so much for that. For those interested, requesting any type of videos, movie review, re-review, random thoughts, streams, commentaries, reactions, whatever the case may be, feel free to send it either directly to my PayPal. I do have a CashApp as well. Links are down below in the info box. I'll get to as soon as I possibly can. For those who sent them, thank you. I do appreciate it. And this is for The Muppets Take Manhattan, which came out in 1984. And it's directed by Frank Oz. I think it's the only Muppet film where he directed it. Because I think the one before this was Jim Henson. And actually, I don't know if Frank Oz did ones afterward. But Frank Oz, who worked on the remake of Little Shop of Horrors and done a variety of other stuff. I think he did What About Bob with Bill Murray. And this is one of those films that I think I saw back in the day, but I did not remember a thing about it. Watching it, I could kind of understand why. Just while it does have its moments and some of its songs, and I think that for the most part, the puppetry work is nicely done. You know, the characters do have that charm, whether it be Kermit or Miss Piggy or Fozzie or all that jazz. Gonzo. The film is kind of boring. I mean, the film is kind of boring. Now, it starts off well enough. The Muppets are doing this show called Manhattan Melodies, this musical play to this college. You see and hear them singing "Together Again," and it's so successful they're like, let's take it to Broadway. So you see them going around New York being told no, 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 no again. Kind of have a song that they do about not giving up. And they think they meet a producer, but you realize it's a con man played by Dabney Coleman. Dabney Coleman, nice to see him in there. He was in 9 to 5. He's been on a bunch of movies and such. And, there's a funny moment where Gonzo's like, don't take the chicken, take me. Whatever you say, pal. And Dabney just grabs Gonzo by the nose. And the fact that you see the full body of Gonzo like trying to maneuver out of it, kind of an interesting visual. And then you kind of have like I don't know if I want to say an adult piece of humor, but one was a bit surprised by where Gonzo was doing the CPR on the chicken, and someone goes, is she alright? And he goes, yeah, but I think we're engaged. And then his eyebrows go like, and I'm like, is he talking about getting laid with this? I mean, I know, I think him and the chicken, like, but is he well, I mean, if they're in, I'll read too much, anyway. So I didn't expect that, and I kind of laughed at that. But they can't find a way to get their show off the ground, their show to be seen on Broadway. No producer wants to give them a chance. Kermit snaps at them, and then he apologizes. And then the rest of them go, you know what, we're putting all this pressure on Kermit. We need to just ease off and go our separate ways, which they do. And there's a somber tone and a song where they do go off on their separate ways. Whether it be Scooter, whether it be Miss Piggy says she will, but then you realize she kind of stayed behind to still watch Kermit. But Fozzie goes over here, Gonzo goes over there. I always forget the dog's name. Was it Roger or? I always forget that dog's name. I don't know why. Kind of funny that he went to work at a dog pound. I don't know, something about that idea is kind of funny. Gonzo is this daredevil, a failed daredevil, doing these tricks with the chickens, but failing. Fozzie goes with bears, and they want to hibernate. And one of them, like Beth, I think her name, cuddles it with Fozzie, and Fozzie's like, as if she's afraid she's gonna bone him or something. I think Scooter works at a movie theater, but they're very brief, and they're not in it as much as you would think. Like those characters I'm mentioning. Like after the other than the beginning and the ending, the other characters aren't in it a whole lot. It's mostly Kermit being sad, being somber, going around, putting on disguises, trying to get in this one meeting with John Landis being in there, having to work at a diner with this human, waitress, and the I think her dad owns the place and he's the cook, and you have some of the rats, like I think it's Rizzo, and they're working in there. Miss Piggy watching them, thinking Kermit has a thing with the humans, so Miss Piggy gets pissed and jealous. And that's kind of it for a good chunk of the middle portion of the movie. And I just didn't find that exciting or that funny or that. I'm saying, is that really the best plot for taking Manhattan? They didn't really feel like they took Manhattan. And again, when you see the other characters and what they're doing, it's pretty brief. Maybe a 1 to 2 minutes for each. Which I get it. I mean, there's a lot of characters, so that creates a decent amount of time. But I would say, I mean, those at least got some little bits of momentum. At least some of them. Like when Studer's at the movie theater, you have the chef, the Swedish chef. Oh, 3D, oh, and then he puts like popcorn. Oh, 3D, oh, 3D. I think it's, I don't know if it's him throwing popcorn or there's the other puppet that throws like fish to make it seem like it's 3D. And don't get me wrong, there are other moments that made me chuckle. There's Miss Piggy. The idea of her getting so mad while she thinks Kermit's doing this, so you just hear this, her going ape shit, but we don't see it. But then we hear it and it's so far away, and then Kermit and the waitress going, "What's that?" And then not noticing that. That's kind of funny. There are cameos in the film. I mentioned Danny Coleman. I mentioned John Landis. You also have Gregory Hines. He's a guy who Piggy borrows his skates because she chases after a purse snatcher that stole her stuff. And the wide shots, you tell, is like a small person in a costume, so that looked a little bit awkward there. Joan Rivers, who was in Spaceballs and other stuff, she is someone who Miss Piggy works with before they get fired. Britt Shields from the Blue Lagoon and other stuff, she's one of the patrons at the diner. Elliot Gould, who's been a lot, he was in the MASH, the movie from back in the day. He plays a cop who visits the diner for a little bit. Art Carney from the Honeymooners, he's in it for a little bit as the father of this kid. Not kid, but of this guy who finally gives Kermit his shot, but then goes, "Well, I'm not actually a producer, my dad is, but I believe in you guys." And eventually is able to get a spot for Kermit and the crew. Until Kermit gets hit by a car, he gets amnesia, and then he wanders into an advertising building, and there's these 3 other frogs who work in advertising trying to sell this soap. And they kind of sound like Kermit, and they have names similar to Kermit. Actually, not Kermit, but the name that Kermit thinks he is. They have similar names. Then they, after talking to her a bit, invite him to their crew. So it's as boring as I'm making it fucking sound. Like Kermit being with three guys, or two and a girl, three other frogs, discussing advertising of soap. I don't think there was much satire about the industry, if that's what Frank Oz was going for. Is that really that exciting? Is that really that funny? Pretty much by coincidence, those characters go to the same diner the rest of our characters are at. They grab Kermit. Kermit laughs at the thought of him being with a pig. Miss Piggy gets pissed, hits him. He gets his memory back. Time to start the show. Then they do the show at the end. Where they actually have the Sesame Street characters in the wedding reception, because that's part of the show. This wedding reception. As like you got Big Bird and Cookie Monster, Bert, Ernie. I'm trying to remember if Oscar the Grouch was in there. Maybe he was. Can't remember. But it's okay, that's cool that the Sesame Street characters are there as well as... That was neat. And you know, to have that big wide shot of all those puppets kind of singing together as you get Miss Piggy and Kermit marrying. Granted, it's part of the show, but you could maybe also think of it as them officially tying the knot. Oh, I didn't even mention that the scene that I probably liked the most is there's a bit where Miss Piggy, after the bit with Gregory Hines and Herdy and the Purse Snatcher, Kermit and the waitress find out that Miss Piggy is there. Miss Piggy wants to hang out with Kermit. They hang out on a horse and buggy. And then Miss Piggy fantasizes about her love for Kermit ever since they were kids. And then it shows the Muppets as the Muppet Babies. And that is probably my favorite scene in the movie. Because I have a nostalgia for Muppet Babies. I haven't seen that since I was a kid. Does I forget? There's some fucking reason why that is not on physical media, and I don't know why. Actually, let me ask. Why is Muppet Babies... Well, gotta turn the fucking thing on. Why is Muppet Babies not on physical media? When asked about the chance of Muppet Babies being released, cartoonist Guy Gilchrist, who was with Jim Henson, said that there was a camaraderie among studios as evidenced by Henson and his crew helping George Lucas, Steven Spielberg with their projects. Back in those days, everyone loved us. They loved Jim. Would do anything for us. We didn't fill out forms, requests, this or that. We basically did whatever we wanted. These days, things are owned by Universal, by Disney, and there's not the camaraderie of that creative level that we had in the 80s. You will not see the original Muppet Babies, and it's the question I did ask the most. I know how much you guys love it. Would love to have them back. It's copyright and trademarks and that sort of thing, unfortunately. I'm trying to think like... In 1989, Disney made one of the first big acquisitions of the Michael Eisner era by buying the Muppets. Jim Henson has signed off to the deal. Yeah, I guess so. Because it was released by CBS, and then Disney, of course, won't do shit with it. Yeah, that's a fucking shame. Because I do remember, it being cute and seeing that with like Ninja Turtles and other stuff. That being Muppet Babies, and I did not know they did a live action section of that. And I'm seeing here, I'm like, oh shit! Oh, even though what I saw back today was a cartoon, I still felt this big wave of nostalgia, like a flood, flourish over my body as seeing, and then also the fun touch of seeing this in live action, where you see the clothes that they wore as the Muppet Babies, and like the type of, like one of them has the little propeller on it, and again this type of clothes, and in the voices trying to sound a bit more babyish, like they did on that cartoon. So I thought that was cool because this came out in '84. When did Muppet Babies start? Sorry, I should have looked that up. Well, 1984. Okay, so it started the same year as when this came out, September 15th, 1984. So, huh. Which is ironic because apparently in 2018, Disney Junior tried to do another Muppet Babies. So you're willing to do a fucking reboot, but you're not willing to give people the show that they fucking liked and enjoyed and made you want to do a fucking reboot of the show in the first place. Fuck you, Disney. Number 245 is the why Disney fucking sucks dick. Fucking hate Disney so much. Such pains in the fucking ass. Hate Disney so damn much. Disney's such a piece of shit. Sorry. But goddamn Disney. Anyway. Where was I? Oh, yeah, Muppet Baby. So it was cool to see that in live action form. I thought that was very, very cute. The song was what it was. There's other songs that were better. I thought the song at the very end, when it's part of the wedding, everyone's getting their moment to the shine. I thought that was very high spirited of a song. The song when they're separating has a nice, a sad, somber state as it should for that type of scene. So there are moments I liked. It's just that the overall, I don't think they really capitalized on the idea of the Muppets being in Manhattan. It seemed like there's so much more they could have done to be in that venue. So the fact that again after your opening, you separate all the characters, then a lot of them again they're not in the film a whole lot, whether it be again Fozzie or Gizmo, Gonzo or others. It just leaves a bit to be desired, at least for me. And then just seeing Kermit hang around a fucking diner or hang out with this waitress lady. And also, like, the cameos weren't as vibrant as some of the other Muppet films. Because then, like, one of them is like, here's Steve Martin, and here's Richard Pryor, and here it's Art Carney, okay, or Britt Shields, okay. Like, it's cool to see Gregory Hines, cool to see Dabney Coleman, but the cameos didn't seem as up the stuff compared to, like, the Muppet movie. Or was it the Muppet Caper? Yeah, Charles Grodin, which is, I remember being great in that, Charles Grodin. This is Charles Grodin. So, yeah, I don't hate the film. Like I said, it has its moments. I think the ending is kind of sweet and joyful. But yeah, I didn't care about the advertising fraud stuff. And Kermit the Amnesia felt like a very lazy way to try to give some suspense to the story. How do we do it? He gets amnesia. Okay. And like I said, I think the setting of New York they could have done a lot more with. I don't think they did enough with the setting. And I said the good portion in the middle, unless those little moments of seeing where the other characters are were fun to see, but it is very brief. And the Muppet Babies bit was fun, even if the song was there. But the scene, the Muppet Babies live action, that was cute. I liked that. But the general story, the general gist of it, I thought was kind of underwhelming. And I said I thought the story, the plot left a bit to be desired. And again, I felt there's a bit more potential here that didn't really live up to, like it got to here when I think it could have gotten to here, if that makes sense. But with that said, thanks for watching. Take care. And we will see you guys in the next video. Bye bye for now.